Our featured author this evening is Linda Xia. Linda is an emerging novelist and poet who has just launched her debut novel entitled Air of Blood and Secrets. Linda's work has been published in various anthologies such as Polar Expressions Inkslide and the Poetry Institute of Canada's The Heart of Solstice. You can find a link to Linda's website and Instagram account on Linda's bio page on our Surrey Muse website. Please welcome Linda Xia.
Hi, Linda. First of all, I wanted to thank you all for having me today. It's a wonderful opportunity to share my work with the world, and I'm really grateful. For context, this is my book, Air of Blood and Secrets, and this is actually a book that I started writing when I was 14, and I really wanted to tell the story about a girl who chooses to be a hero. I think I've been really frustrated with the idea of a chosen one, because this is real life. We don't have a lot of prophecies. We don't have ancient scrolls telling us that we're special. I think the onus is kind of on us to choose to do something extraordinary, to choose to do the right thing, rather than constantly waiting to be told by some external force. All right. And now we're going to move into chapter 1, which is called The Gathering. If you want to see it, that's what it looks like. All right. So this is what hell looks like. I glance over at Ilya. He leans against a wall, tall and lanky in his formal black suit, lazily taking in the scene before us. His sloppy brown hair has been tamed, so it doesn't obscure his eyes like it usually does. He looks like he belongs in this fancy ballroom full of gossiping politicians and fake smiles, aside from the small smatter of red paint on his tie. I'm not a huge fan of large gatherings like this one, where we spend hours standing around and talking to near strangers about controversial issues that can't be resolved in the time it takes to eat one of the tiny hors d'oeuvres circulating through the crowd. I can't disagree. This is pretty much hell. However, my father is one of the speakers tonight, so out of some sense of family loyalty, I don't agree with Ilya either. You have paint on your tie, I say instead. Ilya glances down. You couldn't have told me that before we got here. You fix with offending streaks, to no avail. Some best friend you are. Couldn't you chuck a mirror? He rolls his eyes at me. It constantly amazes me how you manage to look decent when you care so little about appearances. I accept the backhanded compliment with an amused smile. He's wrong, though. I pretend to care so little because I know I care too much. It's the inevitable result of having grown up being constantly judged on my darker skin tone and hair, physical markers of a heritage I know little about but can never hide. I can thank my mother for that. May she rest in peace. I reach out to snag a pile of unidentifiable mush from a passing tray. I examine it critically. Is this actually food, or just some kind of abstract art masquerading as food? Probably food, but who knows? I'm distracted from my perusal when I catch a glimpse of a familiar face out the corner of my eye. I scan the room again and frown when I'm not able to locate him. I'm probably mistaken. It would be absurd if he were actually here, since he's not really the kind of guy who'd be welcome at a council event, even if he did want to come. I learned that lesson the hard way. Ilya runs his hands through his hair and straightens abruptly. He slouches so often that I often forget he's actually a little taller than I am now. Incoming. I frown and glance over. His father is approaching. Like his son, he is dressed immaculately in a three-piece suit, although his is the color of a ripe plum. Unlike his son, there are no spatters of paint anywhere on his person. It never fails to surprise me how similar the two look. They have the same hazel eyes, the same full eyebrows, the same square jawline. I quickly shove the appetizer into my mouth, barely managing to swallow it before Magistrate Okayan is off on us. Skyla, he booms, greeting me with a hearty handshake. The elaborate chandeliers that illuminate the ballroom glint off hair more silver than brown. Good to see you. I smile. Likewise, Magistrate. I'd practically grown up at Ilya's house, having bonded him with him over the shared grief of losing our mothers at a young age. Are you enjoying yourself? He inquires. My smile dims a little. Of course. I just love these gatherings. They're such a wonderful opportunity to meet interesting people. I look forward to it every year. Ilya opens me, wordlessly telling me to tone down my faint enthusiasm. Magistrate Chime laughs. Is that why you're standing in a corner alone? He waves a hand at the glittering elite, who chat in clusters between banquet tables and elaborate floral arrangements. Above them, hundreds of tiny gold flower motifs grace the arch ceiling. Hey, I'm here too, Ilya protests. His father waves him off. Come, I refuse to let you two huddle by the wall the entire night for yet another year. That's not what we do every year, I mutter. Magistrate Child lifts an eyebrow. Regardless, you must meet the crown, given that she's decided to grace us with her presence tonight. Ilya and I exchange looks. The crown rarely attends public events. It's the perfect opportunity, Magistrate Chan continues. Everyone says she's in fine spirits. He steers us into the chaos that is the council's annual gathering. I spare a longing glance for the peace and quiet of her secluded corner. I've been to 3 of these now, have been forced to attend every year since I was 13, but I've never been introduced to the crown. Beside me, Ilya fidgets nervously, straightening his tie and smoothing out his shirt. His fiddling is infectious, and I find myself tugging at my blazer. As usual, I've eschewed the fancy gowns other girls my age prefer. It's hard enough to be taken seriously when you haven't reached the age of majority, without also introducing something as frivolous as a dress into the mix. Instead, I'm wearing an elegant pantsuit in blue so dark it's almost black. I have to admit, it makes me look like someone who should be taken seriously, even if the fabric is a little too stiff to make it comfortable. It's my concession to the formality that politics in Devavia demand. I've also done my best to tame my head of curly dark hair, but I've only partially succeeded. As we move through the crowd, numerous people step into our path to converse with the illustrious magistrate of Cayenne. They ask him for advice, for support, and he responds generously. I'm not surprised. The many hours I'd spent at Ilya's house meant that I had a front row seat to all of his father's dealings, mostly because we eavesdropped a lot. Magistrate Chan has always been kind and fair to allies and opponents alike, a rarity in the cutthroat world of Devavian politics. There are also murmurs that the death of his daughter was such a tragedy, and that such an experience would age anyone, which I can tell sets Ilya on edge. Magistrate Chan doesn't seem to notice. It's been over a decade since Ilya's sister passed away, but such things are never forgotten in the castle. We're intercepted by a portly man in his 60s. Magistrate Reyes, O'Chan says. You remember my son, Ilya, and Magistrate Delvin's daughter, Skyla? We exchange pleasantries, as is expected. Reyes' bald head gleams, even in the muted lighting of the ballroom. He claims to shave it himself, but it is whispered throughout the castle. That's mostly due to natural balding, and that the magistrate is simply too vain to admit it. The castle might be home to the wealthiest and most powerful people in Devavia, but it's also home to the nosiest. Secrets are the currency here, where nothing is as simple as it seems. Even the castle isn't what visitors expect. Once an actual castle perched above the rest of the city-state, it's been expanded over the years to the point where it's more of a village, with large glass-fronted dwellings encircling the original stronghold, and smaller buildings popping into existence every few weeks as politicians seek to outshine their opponents. I zone out a little as Reyes launches into a tirade about yesterday's council meeting. I've met Magistrate Reyes before, since he works with my father, although he doesn't seem to remember me. Reyes says something to me I don't catch, and Ilya nudges me with his shoulder, hazel eyes bright with laughter. I think Sky looks lovely tonight as well, he says pointedly. I incline my head courteously. Thank you. You're too kind. Magistrate Reyes nods. It's a very flattering outfit. It's always good to have an excuse to dress up, don't you think? My wife spends hours getting ready for these things. I almost roll my eyes, and have to resist the urge to ask him just how long it took him to get ready. Of course, I say instead. I want to make a good impression on the important officials here this evening. After all, if I'm to take over my father's council seat one day, it's best to start building relationships now. There's little doubt that I will eventually take my father's seat, though. The Delvin family comes from a long line of magistrates, a fact that my father boasts about far too often. He stares at me a moment, as if attempting to judge my sincerity. I must have passed muster, because he turns his judging gaze on Ilya. And you, young man, look as strong as an ox. Spending lots of time training with the guards? Some lucky lady would be happy to have you as a suitor. especially since you'll soon be taking over your father's council seat. He looks pointedly at me. Don't you think, Skyla? I stare at him silently and hide my hands, which I've now clenched into fists, behind my back. It wouldn't be appropriate to show my anger, no matter how justified. Ilya mumbles something about the importance of getting enough exercise, and then trails off. The silence stretches awkwardly. A server comes by with more puzzling delicacies, which no one seems keen to sample. Magistrate Ratan jumps in. Reyes, do you think the new defense bill will pass? He asks. I hear there's been some mutterings how too much of our budget is allocated to our armed forces. Thankfully, Reyes takes the bait and falls into a lengthy diatribe about the importance of maintaining an army even in times of peace. According to him, having a strong army can resolve even the thorniest of international conflicts. I'm reasonably certain that isn't the case, but have no desire to engage Reyes in conversation if I can avoid it. Finally, we manage to extricate ourselves after a passionate explanation about how it's good that Devavia's economy doesn't rely on trade, since everyone knows foreigners can't be trusted. Magistrate Ratan turns to me. I am so sorry, Skyla, he says. Reyes can be a bit traditional. This time, I do roll my eyes. He's ridiculous, is what he is. I'm also poised to take over my father's council seat. I make Magistrate Reyes' raspy baritone and Ilya laughs. Why doesn't he tell Ilya what a good prospect I am? If anyone's actually training with the guards, you must know that's not him. Ilya jabs him with his elbow again. Ah, there's the crown, Magistrate Ratan says with what might be a sigh of relief. Perfect timing too, he notes, as the man conversing with her inclines his head and takes his leave. Your Honor, might I introduce you to the Ochaya and Delavan heirs? The crown holds court behind a delicate glass table topped with food and drink. She sits on a plush brocade chair, a dignified woman dressed in a bespoke gown that probably costs more than what most people make in a year. The gold fabric sparkles as she moves, every moment graceful despite the silver threading her hair. Behind her, the usual contingent of guards stand watch, armed to the teeth and on high alert. I can't help but feel a little intimidated. I've met a lot of important people, but none of them possess the aura of command that she does. I swallow hard and lift my chin. It's a pleasure to make your acquaintance, Your Honor. My name is Skyla Delavan. I glance at Ilya, who doesn't seem inclined to introduce himself. And this is Ilya Gayan. To my surprise, she smiles broadly. It's always a pleasure to meet our future leader, she says. Her voice is soft and smooth as silk. It's hard to believe this is the woman who ultimately decides if council motions pass or fail. Come, we simply must get to know each other better. She rises, nods to one of the many doors branching out from the ballroom, and our guards take up positions around her, one of them hurrying ahead to open the door. I exchange baffled looks with Ilya and trail after them. The rich instrumental music that permeates the ballroom fades as we head down the hall. No one knows the crown's real name. The rumors and conspiracies around her past have lent her an air of mystery and power. I'd always expected her to be cold and aloof and secretive, not friendly and warm. She takes us to a small parlor that's empty, save for a couple talking quietly in the corner, and gestures us onto a set of matching couches. Shelves line two of the four walls, full of books that look like they haven't been touched for quite some time. 2 guards join us, unobtrusively taking up positions by the wall, while the rest wait outside. Tell me a little about yourselves. Ilya seems to be silently awestruck beside me. I nudge him. Ilya is a very talented artist, Your Honor, I say. You should see his paintings. The crown shifts her attention to Ilya. What do you like to paint? Ilya clears his throat, twice. Landscapes, mostly of nature, Your Honor. Enough with Your Honor, she says. There's no need for such formalities outside the council chambers. We're simply having a lovely conversation and getting to know each other. I also do other things, Ilya blurts out. I like training with the guards. The crown studies Ilya with piercing blue eyes, as if she was fully aware of his deception and simply waiting for her to own up to it. Is that so? He flushes under her steady gaze. It happens, occasionally. But you prefer to paint. Ilya hesitates and then nods, and study nature. Our world is full of such beautiful and interesting organisms. I could spend centuries studying them and not be bored. How incredibly refreshing, the crown says, bestowing a warm smile on Ilya. We need artists and scientists as well, not just soldiers. Everyone plays a role in Devavia. That's what makes us so lucky to live here. Ilya beams. But Skyla really does train with the guards, he adds. She's incredible. Is that so? It's my turn to fidget under the crowd's scrutiny. For a moment, I consider lying. What if she, like my father, thinks me unprofessional for doing so? The pen is mightier than the sword, he's fond of saying. You won't need to wield a weapon if you can bend people to your will using your words. I think that everyone should have the opportunity to learn to defend themselves and discover just what they're capable of, I say carefully. I've given up a lot of things to impress my father, but never my daily training sessions with the guards. There's nothing quite like facing off with an opponent in the open courtyard of the training grounds, and flowing through the combinations we've relentlessly drilled. The crowd nods. You're quite right, Skyla. I am? I feel my cheeks warm. I'm glad you agree. A bell chimes, signaling to start with speeches, and I have to hide my wince. The speeches are the worst part of these gatherings, but it wouldn't be appropriate to say that to one of tonight's speakers. We wouldn't want to take up too much of your time, I say. We should probably head back, before we miss anything important. The crowd smiles ruefully. Of course, duty calls. She shakes hands with me, and then Ilya. I would love to speak with you farther, Skyla. I'll have an invitation to tea couriered over to you. She looks at Ilya. Both of you. As we stammer our things, she sweeps out of the room, leaving us stunned. Ilya immediately loses the knot of his tie. Do you realize what a big deal this is? He asks, eyes bright with excitement. Oh yeah, I see. This is huge. My father's going to be so excited. Ilya grins. Mine too. I push to my feet. Come on, let's go. It's just an hour of boring speeches, and then we can go home and he can finally take off that tie. He groans. Oh, hell. I forgot about that. I can't believe I had an entire conversation with the crown with paint on my tie. I laugh. She didn't seem to mind. Don't worry. Together, we re-enter the ballroom. Spotlights illuminate the stage that dominates the far wall. It's a relic of times gone by, back when this room was used to host performances by talented musicians and actors, a time before military spending eclipsed all other expenditures. It takes up almost a quarter of the room, with its heavy velvet curtains and glossy midnight floor. Flag stands bearing the Demovia's standard perched proudly on either side. The banquet tables have been replaced by rows of golden upholstered chairs arranged in ever-increasing semicircles, like the rays of some miniature sun. We take seats, just in time to see my father, Magistrate Reyes, take the stage to extol the importance of the new defense bill they're trying to pass. The house lights are dimmed, casting most of the ballroom into shadow. Having spent the last few months listening to my father complain about it, I slouch in my chair and resign myself to yet another hour of hearing the same things over and over. As you all know, Magistrate Reyes says, the Senate is rising into tears, and it is imperative that we have enough soldiers to quell any uprisings. He leans forward, planting his hand on the gilded counter that arches dramatically across the front of the stage and serves as the podium. I sit bolt upright. This is new. As far as I know, the defense bill is about defending Demovia from other city-states or countries, not from itself. I'm not the only one surprised. Murmurs drift through the crowd, a rising wave of dissent that washes over the stage. Magistrate Reyes clears his throat, unperturbed. I assure you that we have done our due diligence and know this to be true. As the Magistrate of Labor, I am responsible for both those who work here, in the castle, and those who work outside into tears. My work has taken me deep into tears these past few months, and the people there are not satisfied with how things are being run. What are they not satisfied with? Someone calls out. Magistrate Reyes waves this off. That is inconsequential. What is important is that we are prepared to put harsh measures in place should things escalate. Small crimes often lead to larger ones. We must adopt a zero-tolerance policy. I lean over to whisper in Ilya's ear. That doesn't make any sense. They aren't even considering listening to the people. They might have valid complaints. Ilya shrugs. I'm sure they have a good reason not to. Or maybe they just don't want to talk about it right now. They probably don't want to turn this gathering into some kind of political debate. I settle back into my chair with a frown. On stage, Magistrate Delvin has pulled up a holographic image of Demovia, which resembles a fancy tiered cake from afar. He points to the top. This is where we are. In the castle, we magistrates struggle to make the right decisions for every citizen in our fair city-state. He points out the tiers next, a mismatched collection of neighborhoods at lower altitudes that encircle the castle. Look how many there are. This is where the foreigners, the poor, and the criminal live. He points out the sectors furthest from the castle. Those who mindlessly rail against the system meant to help them, instead of putting the hard work necessary to build a better life for themselves and their children. He gestures to the higher tiers, the ones only a few blocks from the castle. They could live lives of luxury, as our merchants and guards do, but they have chosen a far less fulfilling path. He spreads his hands, appealing to the Crown for support. We must strengthen our military presence in the tiers where protests and riots have taken place, impose a curfew, imprison those who threaten our peace. We must move swiftly and decisively, protect the city our ancestors have built. We must pass this bill. He pauses for dramatic effect. We must save them from themselves. Scattered applause breaks out in response to his declaration. I look around stunned as support grows. A few people even rise to their feet. Beside me, Ilya applauds politely. Do you agree with them? I hiss at him. It doesn't matter what we think, he retorts. What matters is that we look like we are supporting our fathers and our council. I clap slowly, grateful for the shadows of highs from prying eyes. I'm in no mood to mask my conflicted feelings. My entire life I've been judged and found wanting by the residents of the castle. It is my pleasure to introduce Magistrate Delvin, who will be sharing the details of the bill with you, Magistrate Reyes says. He turns toward the right, where the next speakers wait patiently off the stage for their turn to speak, and the crowd follows his gaze. A spotlight illuminates my father as he confidently crosses the stage. Father steps up to the podium, and Magistrate Reyes exits to the left. Thank you for having me, he begins. This is a momentous... He stops mid-sentence when Magistrate Reyes stumbles, falling hard to his knees. Magistrate Reyes gasps, and lets out a small cry of pain as he clutches at his chest, where crimson blood stains the snow etcher and seeps through his fingers. The room falls silent. No one dares to move, to speak, to breathe. And that is all we have time for tonight. If you'd like to know what happens next, you can find Air of Blood and Secrets on Amazon. The link is on my website, or you can always just send me an email, and I can send you the appropriate links. Thank you so much.